Hi, I'm Jenny Taylor Martin, a director here at Edgar Cayce's A.R.E, and today I'm speaking with the author of Visits to Heaven, Josie Varga. Josie, it's so nice to have the opportunity to speak with you today about your latest book.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Visits to Heaven is the follow-up to your best-selling Visits from Heaven. Can you tell us a little bit about both books and how they're different?
Well, Visits from Heaven is about evidential afterlife communication. It contains over 80 accounts from around the world, and there are chapters written by experts. When I set out to write that book, I had one rule. Every account must be backed up by proof. And because of that, I had to turn down a lot of great stories. But it was important to me that every account be evidential, just like my own experience. Visits to Heaven, I actually decided to write before I even finished Visits from Heaven, because I heard of so many incredible near-death experiences, and to me it just seemed like the natural next step. Visits from Heaven, afterlife communication, near-death experiences, you go to heaven. So Visits to Heaven includes many incredible accounts, a lot of them famous: Denning Brinkley, Valen Thomas, Sylvia Brown, and there's also a lot of great chapters. We have past life regressionist Carol Bauman, physicist Peter Russell, Melvin Morse. I'm very, very proud of this book. A lot of the contributors talked about their experiences for the first time in my book, so that means a lot.
What exactly is a near-death experience?
The International Association for Near-Death Studies defines an NDE as a profound psychological event that may occur to a person who is near death or who is not necessarily near death, but is in a situation of physical or emotional crisis. So a lot of people mistakenly think that you have to be near death in order to have these experiences, but you don't. And people also refer to these types of experiences as NDLE, which is a near-death-like experience.
Can you share with us your favorite story from Visits to Heaven?
What comes to mind, obviously there are a lot of great stories, so it's hard for me to pick a favorite, but there's one story that comes to mind, and the reason being it combines an NDE and a visit from heaven, or afterlife communication. It's a story by a woman named Cindy Smith. And what happened was Cindy graduated from high school, and she's on her way, she lived in California, and she's on her way to the Colorado River with 5 other friends to celebrate. One of the people that were with her was a woman named Linda Pearson, and she says for some reason she was fascinated by this girl, Linda. Linda had long dark brown hair, wore bangle bracelets on her wrist, and she said there was just something about her that fascinated her. So they go on this trip. They get into a car accident. Cindy ends up waking up in the intensive care unit. She doesn't quite know what happened to her. She's in traction. She broke her neck. She broke her back. She broke her leg. She finds out that she was in a car accident, and then she finds out that Linda Pearson passed away. And at that point, she goes into a state of shock, and she cries out, "God, I need you now." And what's interesting about that is Cindy said to me that she was never a religious person. She never thought much about God. So why she cried out, "God, I need you now," she has no clue. But she does. She cries out, "God, I need you now." And she says all of a sudden she felt like there were 2 large hands underneath her, lifting her soul up. And she's in this complete darkness, and all of a sudden she sees this light, and it's getting larger and larger, and she sees entities. And she knows that she knew them. She doesn't know how she knew them, but she knows she knew them. They loved her, she loved them. And it goes on, and she says she finds herself in the presence of a supreme being who she called Jesus. So she says to Jesus, "Jesus, what am I to make of this?" And Jesus says, and this is all telepathic, there are no words, mind-to-mind communication. So she said, "Jesus, what am I to make of this?" And he says to her, "Whatever you shall want, you shall have." And she says, well, if I walk with a cane, I shall be happy. So he says, so be it. So she comes out of it. She has a very, very long recovery. And then eventually she does walk with a cane. Okay? She goes to school and she meets this psychic medium. The psychic medium does a reading for her. And she says a lot of amazing things, but the one thing that got Cindy is the woman says to her, there's a woman here. She has long dark brown hair, and she's pointing to her bangle bracelets. And she has on what looks like a Victorian collar. And all of a sudden, Cindy says, oh my God, it's Laura. And she doesn't know why she said Laura. She thinks it was because of the excitement. And the medium says to her, well, actually, no, I'm getting the name Linda. So that's how you know that this woman was completely legitimate, you know. But the interesting thing is, you know how she mentioned the Victorian collar? Linda Pearson, in the accident, was thrown out the back window. And when she was thrown out the back window, she was decapitated. So Cindy thinks that maybe the Victorian dress signified whatever this medium was seeing was actually maybe a collar, you know, a neck brace of some sort. So I love that story because, you know, that combines both an NDE and a visit from heaven.
From your experience and research, what would you say is the difference between a ghost and an angel?
An angel is a highly enlightened, evolved spirit. An angel knows the secrets of the universe. They know the reason why we're here. They're closer to the divine. Ghosts, on the other hand, I believe, are restless spirits that have lost their way. They are not necessarily negative spirits. I mean, usually when people hear a ghost, people think, ooh, you know, it's a bad thing. But that's not true. A lot of times, ghosts are just spirits that have lost their way. They are misguided. Yes, you do have some spirits that choose to exert negative energy. You know, it could be someone that has committed murder and that has lost their way and they're afraid to move on. But the fact of the matter is, not all spirits or ghosts are negative.
We often hear that ghosts who can't move on are spirits who don't realize that they've died. What do you think about that?
Absolutely true. A lot of times they don't realize they're dead. One of the things is, my friend, a medium, said to me, well, make sure when you die you don't have any unresolved issues. Okay? You know, and the fact of the matter is, it's the same thing when you have an NDE. People have an NDE, they go to the other side, and they know that their physical body is dead, but they're not dead. And who they truly are is spirit. So they're confused too. Just like a ghost would be confused. You know, how can this be? Okay, I'm quote unquote dead, but I'm still here. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing with a ghost. You know, they don't realize that they're dead. I had an experience in my own home with a ghost named Andrea. And my daughter was seeing things in her room. And I thought, okay, it's just a figure of her imagination. But to make a long story short, my friend Anthony was able to guide this spirit into the light, over the phone, no less. But the fact of the matter is, this woman was afraid to go into the light. And maybe she didn't realize that she was dead, you know? So the same way, NDEs go to the other side, and they often say that they had a hard time realizing that, yes, they are physically dead, but how can they be dead when they're actually alive, if that makes any sense? So again, that's the same thing. There's no difference.
Why do you think these spiritual experiences are not more common or experienced by everyone?
I think that they're actually more common than you think. I read an article that said more than 80% of people have an afterlife communication or a visit from heaven. So I think that people just aren't aware of them. An example is what is called a telepathic sign. Say you're in a room and all of a sudden you sense a presence behind you or someone in the room, okay? Is that a coincidence or is that a sign? Say you're in the car and you're thinking about your deceased husband and all of a sudden your wedding song comes on the radio at the exact same moment. Is that a sign or is that a coincidence? So the fact of the matter is, a lot of people receive these signs, but they just overlook them.
How have the stories in this book affected your life?
I've realized so much about myself. I am not just a mother. I am not just a wife. I am not just an author. I am so much more than that. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. I'm not just here biding my time. We can all make a difference. We all matter. And that's one of the things that this book taught me. It taught me that we are all so much more than we think.
How can people use the information from your book in their own life?
Visits from heaven and visits to heaven are not just about understanding that life continues. The fact of the matter is, once you understand that life continues, the next question is, well, if I don't die, I can't be this body. How can I be this body? We are spiritual beings having a human experience. If that was not the case, then none of the stories in my books would be possible. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I think that people can use the information in my book to understand who they really are, to understand that they're here for a purpose, and hence live more joyful, meaningful lives.
Josie, it was such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Visits to Heaven is published by Fourth Dimension Press, an imprint of A.R.E. Press, and is available at arecatalog.com.